Marvel Eternals, the most controversial movie since Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker. Now, this movie is really gonna separate. I really think the audience are gonna be diverse. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. But realistically, I've got no idea what the critics on Rotten Tomato are talking about. This movie, for me, was better than most Marvel movies. I'm not going to say it's God tier like Infinity War or Thor Ragnarok, but for me, it was better than Black Widow. It was better than Shang-Chi. It was better than the majority of Marvel movies. So no idea what these critics are on about when they give it a great early reaction and then backtrack in the actual review because they got the big quote on the Eternals trailer. So yo, what is good YouTube? Warstu here. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe. So we're going to break down the ending. We're going to break down the post-credit scenes. And we're going to break down a general overview of this movie. But overall, I think you should watch it. It's a pretty cool movie. So if you are new around here, make sure to check us out on Instagram at Warstu. Make sure to check us out on Twitter at WarstuG. Right, let's get into this video. So for me, I almost forgot this was a Marvel movie. For me, this almost felt like a DC Gods kind of movie. Kind of got a little bit of DC Gods vibe, so to speak, because essentially the Eternals are kind of gods in a roundabout way, but not really. So overall, this movie was pretty good. Gives us an origin story, explains each of the Eternals, explains the Celestials, explains the storyline, explains what the overall movie is going to be about quite early on. So I've got no idea what these critics are on about. And I'm going to say critics loosely because I've been to no end of press screenings over the last few years, and I wouldn't really call myself a critic either. So aesthetically, this movie was very pleasing. It was shot in a very different way, but Chloe does have her unique style from her indie background. And overall, I thought it was a pretty good way to introduce a very different type of movie. And yes, the critics did say this is the most unlikely Marvel movie ever, but I quite liked it. I'm going to go against what a lot of people say. I know this video isn't sponsored by anyone. It's sponsored by your boy Warstu. So let's break down what happened. So there is 2 post-credit scenes. I think it's easier if we do the post-credit scenes first. So yes, Harry Styles is playing Eros, Thanos' brother. And that's what caused controversy 2 weeks ago. Now, we went over a video about the post-credit scene 2 weeks ago, and I can now confirm it's 100% real. So after the Eternals, who some of remain on Earth, and Eros kind of disappears, we essentially see One Direction star Harry Styles, the older brother of the Mad Titan himself, Eros, aka Star Fox, but I don't think Star Fox is going to appear. So Star Fox is the first naturally created Eternal, created without the help of the Deviants, Thanos' younger brother, and a deviant gene makes him look like a monster, although his aesthetics in this were decent. They could have been better. So that is essentially the first post-credit scene. Eros essentially turns up and talks to a few Avengers, Eternals, and goes, "My fellow Eternals," which is interesting. So there really isn't much to break down. Now, what is interesting is a lot of people going into this movie said that Angelina Jolie playing Athena, not Athena, the goddess of war, they actually said that she wasn't in it as much. But Dane Whitman, played by Jon Snow, played by Kit Harington, I would say he had a cameo role in this movie, pretty much. Now, right at the end of the movie, he confirms and reveals to Cersei that he has a complicated family history, but before he can tell her, she is summoned by the Celestial, essentially. And after the credits, we essentially see Dane opening a chest, taking out a dark sword, the Ebony Blade, and speaking the Latin words from the off or a mysterious voice, asking if he is ready. Now, in the comics, Dane Whitman essentially inherits the black magic sword from his uncle, who was the villain Black Knight, and as the new Black Knight, he joins the masters of the evil group to infiltrate them. But essentially, the way I think they might play it in Marvel is essentially the Black Knight will become a pinnacle part of the Avengers. Black Knight wants to help the Avengers, but they don't trust him. Only when Dane helps the superheroes fight Kang the Conqueror, they gain his trust, essentially. And that is your overview of the Black Knight in the comics. But on this channel, as you guys freaking know, we don't really go into much detail about the comics, because that ain't my style. So, the ending explained is essentially this movie is realistically just about stopping the 10,000th emergence. And some of the Eternals are on the side of the emergence happening, and some of the other Eternals are not on the side of the emergence happening. Eros, aka wannabe Superman, you're not even close, bro. And I seen what they did. They did the iconic Superman scene, didn't they? Where he's looking down on Earth before he flies away right at the end of the movie. And I'm thinking, bro, Eros, you're strong. You can shoot lasers out of your eyes, but you've got no cape. You've got no cape. So it is interesting how it ends. And essentially, Cersei stops the emergence from happening, saves a freaking day, and then she can resume her love affair with Dane Whitman, aka Jon Snow from the North. And essentially, Cersei transforms Sprite into a human girl, which essentially is what she always wanted. Eros leaves Earth, flying out of the atmosphere into deep space. The hero appears to have committed suicide by throwing himself into something, but we don't really know. It looked like the sun, to be honest. Like I said, guys, I'm very different to any other person on this platform, which is why maybe some of you like me. Maybe, I don't know. So the biggest point of this is the betrayal storyline of Eros. Eros was essentially to blame for Ajax's death. He threw her off the cliff, and then she was eaten by some Celestials. But he didn't really want it to happen. But Ajax told Eros about the emergence on every planet. And then when they go to a new planet, their memories get wiped. And essentially, and by the end, Eros wouldn't kill the love of his life, Cersei. And then essentially, he's like, yo, I'm sorry. And maybe Eros, played by Richard Madden, may return in the future. We don't know, but that would be interesting. Like I say, I can't see this movie getting a second movie like Eternals 2 because they didn't get involved with Thanos or any other threat that wasn't celestial or deviant based because they weren't allowed to. But essentially, they could have done. There were a lot of deaths in this movie, essentially. Ajax is killed by Eros, essentially to prevent her from betraying the cause, essentially. Gilgamesh falls in battle while protecting Athena, remember. And then essentially, Karoo is killed by Karoo. I don't know how you pronounce it properly. Karoo is killed by Athena. Why do I keep saying Athena? Athena, essentially, which is interesting. And then essentially, Eros leaves the planet, launches himself into the sun, presumably committing freaking suicide, bro. But I don't know. I mean, there could be a sequel because of the way the movie ends, when essentially the remaining Eternals are called. Well, not really called. They're pulled into the out of Earth, essentially, by the overall villain. And he says, I will return. He will freaking return. Who am I even on about? I've not even mentioned his name because I don't really know how to pronounce it, but let's go for it now. Arishem. Hopefully I said it right. Arishem. Arishem is the overall villain. After what Thanos plotted and the blimp, Ajax begins to have doubts about the work of Isham. And that is essentially why Icaros essentially allowed Ajax to die. So there was a lot that happened in this movie. The movie was just under 2.5 hours long. The post-credit scenes are cool, but if they're not going to do anything with the Black Knight, and if they're not going to do anything with Eros, aka Starfire, but I presume because Starfire is a game on Nintendo, for copyright reasons, they're probably not going to use that name. It is interesting. And yes, sure, there could be another sequel because the way it ends, Ishram will return. But is there a sequel in the works? I don't know, but the way it ends, it realistically could pick up, that scene could pick up anywhere. The Eternals could be plopped into any essential movie realistically. So essentially, what happens is Cersei and the rebels Eternals manage to save the day by joining forces and killing the Celestials unborn. But eventually there will be another Celestial that has to be born, bloody blah blah, and you get the plot of it. So it is pretty interesting how most of the Eternals disappear. Some stay on planet Earth, aka Sprite, etc. Then they're summoned right at the end to set up a sequel. But overall, guys, I think this movie was pretty good. The betrayal of Eros was quite obvious to someone watching the movie properly. Like I said, guys, overall pretty good movie. Not the best Marvel movie I've ever watched, but nowhere near the worst Marvel movie in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see what the audience thinks when they go watch it. Will this movie break the Marvel record post-pandemic? We don't know, but it is interesting installment. I don't really agree with a lot of people's comments that this movie had too much to cram into it. Clearly it was a simpleton story that anyone could understand. Bit of a backstory. We've seen the past, we've seen the present, It was cool that it kept flicking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We got to see what happened at the end. It set up Star Fox, aka Eros, and it set up Dane Whitman becoming the Black Knight. It also set up a sequel if they choose to go that way, or they could pick up the story with Cersei being called by the Celestial King, Ishra. If they wanted to, they can pick up that story anywhere. They could tag it into any movie, realistically, if they wanted to. So like always, guys, check us out on Instagram at Warstu, check us out on Twitter, WarstuG, and comment down below 50 times each, please, and also subscribe to the channel. That would be much appreciated, and let me know, did you love the movie? Did you hate it? Are you one of these people that said it's freaking woke because there is an LGBT gay kiss, which realistically, I forgot about that right till right now. That it realistically, for me, wasn't even a big part. I don't understand why there was articles coming out saying, yes, it was forced. It was such a forced kiss, guys. I completely forgot about that kiss scene until I just remembered when I was freestyling this video. So yeah, there was no wokeness, no agenda. Although at the premiere, they did keep saying how diverse it is. I didn't really get that vibe during the movie. I almost forgot it was a Marvel movie. I got more of a DC Gods-ish-esque type movie, to be fair, guys. So like always, guys, I'll catch you in another video. Catch you later.